Gold is up over 50% in the last 2 years. Bitcoin has hit six figures. And the dollar, still the global reserve currency. If all three of these things feel like they can't be true at the same time, you're right to be confused because the explanation lies in part of the financial system that almost nobody talks about. It's called monetary plumbing. By the end of this video, you'll understand why gold, Bitcoin, and the dollar aren't actually fighting each other, and how families are using that knowledge to quietly build wealth on better terms than the system was designed to give them. I'm a 737 pilot. I fly KC 135s for the Air Force. I'm also an authorized infinite banking practitioner. And before all of that, I was a public school math teacher. So if this sounds complicated, don't worry. Making the complex simple is literally what I was trained to do. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Great, another finance guy on YouTube telling me the system is rigged so he can sell me something. Fair, I get it, but this isn't a doom episode. I'm not here to tell you the dollar's about to collapse because it's not. And I'm not here to tell you Bitcoin is going to zero because it's not doing that either. This is a mechanics episode. I want to show you how the machine actually works because once you see the plumbing, you stop reacting emotionally to price movements and start positioning strategically. Quick note, this video is for educational purposes only. I'm not giving you investment, tax, or legal advice. Always consult authorized professionals before making financial decisions. All right, so here's what most people miss. The difference between families who build lasting wealth and those who stay stuck isn't which asset they pick. It's whether they understand the settlement system those assets sit inside. By the end of this video, you'll know something most financial advisors have never even considered. And it changes everything about how you think about gold, Bitcoin, your 401k, and where your dollars actually belong. The biggest concern I hear is from guys who follow metals is the price is manipulated, they're suppressing it. And honestly, that instinct is largely correct. Gold and silver are priced through futures and derivatives, paper markets, not physical delivery. These markets exist to manage volatility. They don't reflect reality. But here's the part most metals guys miss. Suppression doesn't break the system. It stabilizes it. Central banks already own the gold. They don't need the price to moon. They need it to not signal panic. Gold, unfortunately, is no longer money inside the system. It functions as collateral insurance outside the system. The price drifting slowly upward, that's fine. Exploding upward overnight, that signals instability, and central banks actively prevent that. So if you're sitting there with a stack of silver eagles, waiting for the system to acknowledge real money, I respect that conviction. I own gold, I own silver. I don't like the Federal Reserve. But unfortunately, the system doesn't care about our conviction. It cares about settlement. And we'll get to what that means in a minute. Metals do have a role, but it's not as a replacement for the dollar system. Understanding why they're suppressed is more useful than being angry about it. Now let's talk about Bitcoin. And I know emotions run high here. Bitcoin is scarce, it's decentralized, it's volatile, all true. But what it actually functions as inside the global system is a pressure valve for excess liquidity. Bitcoin absorbs speculation. It absorbs distrust. It absorbs capital that can't find a home in traditional markets. But here's the critical piece. Bitcoin is not a credit system. There's no maturity transformation. There's no repo market. There's no global settlement layer. There's no balance sheet elasticity. And ironically, Bitcoin doesn't threaten the dollar system. It actually helps stabilize it by giving disaffected capital somewhere to go without touching core plumbing. Now, I'm also not anti Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. And if you own some, that's fine. It's probably good. But if your entire financial strategy is wait for Bitcoin to replace the dollar, your kids might be waiting a very, very long time. And that's not a legacy plan. That's a hope plan. If you're skeptical of what I'm saying, good. You need to be. Because this next part is the piece that almost nobody in financial media explains clearly. Most people think the dollar is something the Federal Reserve prints. They think it's controlled by Congress. They think it's backed by policy. And that's not the system. The real dollar system is offshore, private, and credit based. It's called the Eurodollar system. And that has nothing to do with the euro, by the way. It's just a term for meaning offshore dollars. You could have the euro yen, for example. So it has nothing to do with the currency euro. The global dollar system, it's created by banks, not governments. It lives in balance sheets, repo markets, foreign exchange swaps, and collateral chains. And when I say monetary plumbing, here's what I mean in plain English. Repo markets. That's overnight lending between banks using collateral. Collateral reuse. One treasury bond gets pledged multiple times. Foreign exchange swaps, countries borrowing dollars using their own currency as collateral. And balance sheet capacity, whether banks have room to extend more credit. The system doesn't run on price signals, it runs on settlement. You can manipulate prices all day long, and still the system will function as long as collateral clears and balance sheets remain solvent. And that's why gold suppression doesn't break the dollar. That's why Bitcoin volatility doesn't break the dollar. None of them touch the core pipes. And that's why countries don't just vote the dollar out. Reserve status is not an ideology. It emerges from plumbing dominance. So to replace the dollar, you'd need a global credit system, deep collateral markets, legal enforceability, offshore neutrality, and willing counterparties on every single continent. Gold fails at scale. Bitcoin fails at credit creation. BRICS, it fails at trust and infrastructure. The world doesn't run on truth. It runs on settlement. Now, here's the part most people miss. And honestly, this is where I went from frustrated observer to strategic operator. If the global system runs on dollars, and dollars are created through credit and balance sheets, then the real question isn't, how do I escape the system? The real question is, where can I safely and privately warehouse dollars while I decide how to deploy them? This is where properly structured whole life insurance, used for the infinite banking concept, quietly becomes one of the most misunderstood financial tools in existence. Because life insurance isn't an investment, it's personal banking infrastructure. Think about what a whole life policy actually is. It's dollar denominated, contractually guaranteed, privately owned, bankruptcy protected in many states. It's not mark to market, meaning it doesn't crash when markets crash. It's not callable. It's not subject to liquidity freezes. In a world where banks can change terms, markets can gap overnight, and governments can rewrite rules, a life insurance contract is one of the few places where rules are fixed. The same system people criticize, creating dollars through loans, collateralizing assets, recycling capital, it's exactly what infinite banking lets you do personally. Your policy becomes a private balance sheet. Premiums become capital injections. Policy loans become controlled liquidity. You're not opting out of the dollar system, you're positioning inside it, but on better terms. Infinite banking doesn't fight monetary plumbing, it copies it on a scale that you can control. If this way of thinking about making money makes sense to you, if you're the kind of person who'd rather understand the machine than just react to headlines, subscribe to this channel. This is what we do here every week. But let me be straight about something. I'm not telling you to sell your gold. I don't plan to ever sell mine. I'm not telling you to dump your Bitcoin. I'm certainly not dumping mine. I'm not even telling you to stop contributing your 401k today. What I'm telling you is that none of those things solve the core problem, which is, do you control your capital or does somebody else? Here's the loop that families who understand this actually run. 1, earn dollars through labor, business, or income strategies. 2, warehouse those dollars safely inside a whole life policy's cash value. 3, access liquidity through policy loans without selling assets or triggering tax events. 4, deploy that capital into opportunities. 5, recycle the dollars back into the system. You're not betting against the dollar, you're using it more efficiently than inflation expects you to. I know what some of you are probably feeling right now. You've spent months, maybe years, researching gold, Bitcoin, alternative currencies, hoping to find the escape hatch. And here I am telling you there isn't one. But here's the reframe. You don't need an escape hatch. You need a command center. Most people think wealth comes from predicting collapse. It doesn't. Wealth comes from understanding the rules of the system you're in, then positioning yourself so that time, inflation, and volatility work for you instead of against you. Infinite banking, it's not totally about life insurance, although they are interrelated very closely. It's about owning a balance sheet in a world that runs on balance sheets. I don't need the dollar to fail. I need control, liquidity, and certainty in a system that offers very little of any of those. And that's what infinite banking gives me and my family. And that's why understanding monetary plumbing isn't academic, it's personal. So now that you understand how plumbing works and why your whole life policy functions as a personal balance sheet, the obvious next question is, where do the dollars come from to fund that system? Because warehousing capital is great, but you need a way to earn dollars faster than inflation erodes them. In my next video, I'll show you exactly why I trade options, not to gamble, not to chase alpha, but as a deliberate income strategy that feeds directly into my banking system. It's the other half of the equation, and it changes the math completely. I'll see you there. And if you're already past the skepticism stage, if you're thinking, okay, I want to explore this for my own family, jump on our calendar linked in the description below.